We all know that the compact crossover market here in the United States is oversaturated, and with that comes a lot of criticisms. People claim that these vehicles all look the exact same. They drive the same. There's nothing unique, individualized, or really worth taking a look at over some of the competitors. And I think a lot of buyers go into this market thinking, all right, I'll either choose a Honda, a Toyota, maybe a Volkswagen, and they never really fully experience what the other rivals are offering. Today, I'm taking a look at the 2023 Ford Escape ST line. Now, with the ST badge, you're probably thinking, okay, maybe it has a sports tune suspension, maybe it has a great powertrain, or it's fun to drive. Well, 2 out of the 3 would be correct because it does not have a sports tune suspension. However, in this market, you can find some really fun vehicles, and the Ford Escape is one of them. And in this video, we're going to discover why that is. We're going to take a good long look at the exterior, the interior, take it out for a test drive, and also see why. If you are looking at buying a compact crossover right now, you want something that's fun, you want something that kind of resembles a sedan that you used to own 5-10 years ago, then maybe taking a look at the Ford Escape might be a great decision. Now, before we get in this video, I'd like to thank Acton Ford in Acton, Massachusetts for allowing me to do this review. The link will be in the description below so you can check out their extensive Ford inventory. Also, before we get started, make sure you hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell so you're notified every time a new video goes live on the channel. And so, without wasting any further time, let's get right in this review. The decision by Ford to invest heavily in crossovers and SUVs sealed the fate and future of how the Escape would proceed in its market, as unlike rivals, there is no sedan or hatchback in the lineup. To counter the possibility of losing loyal buyers to domestic and Japanese competitors, the 4th generation Escape became more of a lifted hatchback, rather than being an adventurous and capable SUV, resulting in this vehicle being the very essence of what a crossover was originally designed for. With a substantial facelift for 2023 comes many changes, but also new trims. And for those who purchased a Focus or Fusion in the past, the Escape and its driving dynamics should be a familiar experience for shoppers who loved owning cars. Starting off with pricing, the Escape we have today is an ST Line Select, coming in at just over $34,000. Meant to infuse a youthful and sportier design to this model, while also teasing US shoppers with the prospect and unlikelihood of an Escape ST. This crossover, from an aesthetics and dimensions perspective, is a breath of fresh air, and resembles only a handful of competitors such as the Mazda CX-5. Inspired by European crossovers, the Escape is one of those vehicles where you can't judge a book by its cover, as it's more practical than one may think, especially at first glance. And we'll discuss that in further detail later on. Maybe even more shocking is that ground clearance comes in at 8 inches, falling short by only 0.2 of an inch compared to a Honda CR-V, making the Escape actually versatile when tackling winter road conditions. For the 2023 model, one of the key improvements is most certainly the road presence, as the front fascia now masks the rounder and angular fenders and bumper that was present on pre-facelifted models. A distinct look for the ST line is the full paint finish that adds some sleekness to this crossover, making the honeycomb mesh grille more noticeable. Available in higher trims is Ford's coast-to-coast LED light bar, which is replaced by a chrome strip that flows into the headlight housings on the ST Line Select, and further offering illumination on dimly lit streets, you'll have LED fog lights. Moving over to a side profile, the ST line offers 2 different set of wheels for 2023. Today, we have the 18-inch rock metallic painted aluminum wheels on our model, but 19s are optional. Ride comfort-wise, the Escape is on par with most rivals. However, this crossover distinguishes itself with a car-like driving experience, as the Escape does have a better lower center of gravity compared to a Volkswagen Tiguan or Honda CR-V. And despite not having a sports tune suspension, its agility in the corners is certainly more inspiring than the typical compact SUV in this price range. You will have body color matching side mirrors, but no turn signal indicators on this Escape, yet we do have blind spot detection for added safety. Then as we make our way around to the back, the Escape design is primarily influenced by the Ford Focus hatchback, which we don't receive here in the US. The full paint finish around the wheel arches and minimal use of plastic cladding further accentuates its car-like road presence, and with the lack of boxy body lines, the Escape does appear sportier than most crossovers. Capping off the look of the final third will be the visible dual exhaust outlets and LED taillights, both of which bring modern cosmetic elements to the Escape. Powering the Ford Escape ST Line Select is a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, producing 250 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque, and is paired with an 8-speed automatic transmission. Optional for this trim, you can equip the Escape with a 2.5-liter hybrid 4-cylinder, which is highlighted by a combined fuel economy of 39 miles per gallon. However, it does come at the expense of performance, and that is the strong suit for this crossover. Aside from the available features and tech enhancements, the incentive to spend a little extra for the Select is that you upgrade from the 1.5-liter 3-cylinder engine, resulting in a brisk 6.5-second 0-60 time that mirrors what we see from the Mazda CX-5 Turbo. For the ST Line Select, all-wheel drive does come standard, perfect for buyers who live in regions that experience snow. And for fuel economy, you're looking at right around 23 miles per gallon in the city, and 31 miles per gallon on the highway. With this trim, the interior for the Escape has some intriguing aesthetics, ranging from the sporty heated steering wheel to the partial vinyl and cloth seats with red contrasting stitching, and even more eye-catching is the carbon fiber trim found on the door panels and dashboard. There are a few key features not equipped on our ST Line Select, including the Tech Pack No. 2 package that includes a 12.3-inch digital gauge cluster, a 10-way power driver's seat and 6-way power passenger seat, the 10-speaker Bang & Olufsen sound system, a 360-degree camera, and the available panoramic Vista moonroof. However, we still have a digital instrument cluster and 13.2-inch infotainment system, both of which elevate the driving experience from a tech perspective, while maintaining a user and driver-friendly layout. Despite not being as immersive or in-depth compared to the 12.3-inch screen, you can scroll through a variety of information and customize what you see being displayed in front of you. Then taking a glance over to the head unit, you'll have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility to go along with onboard navigation. If you're upgrading from an older Escape, you may be surprised to find that your dual-zone climate control, AC, front and rear defrosters, and heated seats and steering wheel are mounted at the bottom of the 13.2-inch screen. Functioning very much like a tablet, we find Ford's Sync 4 system to be easier to use compared to rivals also moving away from physical buttons. Better yet, because Ford has evolved their head unit without fundamentally changing the software from prior generations, it's unlikely you'll experience any learning curves when hopping into this vehicle for the first time. You'll have a rear backup camera with trajectory to go along with rear parking sensors. Below, you'll find a single row of buttons for the push-button start, volume control, park assist, auto start-stop, and drive mode selector, where you can scroll between eco, normal, sport, and slippery, all of which affect throttle response and steering input. Then as we make our way towards the center console, there will be a cubby for a smartphone, which can be upgraded to a wireless phone charging pad, and you'll also have a USB-C and USB input and a 12-volt outlet. As we saw for the pre-facelifted models, the dial for the gear selector does make a return, and you'll find the buttons for the electronic parking brake and auto vehicle hold. Finally, to round out the front seating area, for the center storage compartment, there should be enough room for smaller items such as a phone or wallet. The one word that would accurately describe the Ford Escape for 2023 would be deception, because it is very deceptive, especially when you take a look at this vehicle from the outside. If you're cross-shopping the Escape with the Forester, the Volkswagen Tiguan, the Honda CR-V, or Toyota RAV4, you might pass up on this crossover because it doesn't have the boxier shape and boxier dimensions, and with that comes a perception that those vehicles are more practical and more family-friendly. But that couldn't be more wrong. In fact, for the second row seating area, you're going to have right around 40.7 inches of legroom. That would outclass almost every vehicle in this market and price range. Now, when you look at the Escape, it kind of looks like a Mazda CX-5. It doesn't look much bigger than a Dodge Hornet. And yet, when it comes to the interior, that's where this vehicle really shines through and showcases that it can be a great family daily driver. Now, I did adjust the seat most of the way back. It's also somewhat on a recline, and I have a good amount of legroom here. But better yet, with the second row seats, they do slide on rails. You can move them forwards and backwards to maximize legroom, but also cargo capacity as well if you are moving stuff around. We'll get into that in a few minutes. And with that, you have a vehicle that is designed for urban use because it does take a lot of styling aspects from European crossovers. And what Ford learned from selling vehicles over in Britain and Germany has really translated to what we have here in the United States for this generation. And the fact that we do have those seats that slide on rails kind of showcases that. Now, I think people of all shapes and sizes will be comfortable in this vehicle, especially when it comes to headroom. Even though the Escape does have a hatchback-like design, the roofline is pretty high, and I do think that if you have people on the height of 6 feet tall back here, they won't be hitting their head on the headliner. Also, there is plenty of legroom as well. So if you have friends tagging along with you, or you have a family, everyone should be sitting in this vehicle very comfortably. Then moving on to the center seat, you are going to have some great placements for your feet. There is a bit of a center hump here, which does take away from legroom and shoulder room. I do think on a shorter drive, or if you do live in the city, you can squeeze in a third person. So if you are using a ride-sharing app, I think you can accommodate that third person. So that is something to keep in mind. Although for family use, I think you could have a smaller child sit in the center as well. So I think you really can maximize the interior space with this model. And then on the driver's side, this seat is adjusted to someone of my height, around 5'5", and I have plenty of legroom here where I can just sit back, relax, and enjoy the driving experience. Also, nothing too is that these seats do recline a bit. So even though it reclines maybe 10-15%, it still maximizes that headroom, but also adds to the comfort level that you have back here in this vehicle. Also back here, you do have two rear air vents to go along with two USB-C inputs. And rounding out the second row seating area, you do get a center armrest with two cup holders. Now coming around to the back, on our model we do have a power liftgate, and inside, behind the second row seats, you're looking at right around 35 cubic feet of room, which is rather impressive for a crossover of this size, because as we've already talked about, it isn't as large as the Honda CR-V, Volkswagen Tiguan, or Toyota RAV4. Now, this isn't class leading, but it is better than most vehicles in this market, including the Subaru Forester, Mazda CX-5, and Dodge Hornet. If you're looking for a vehicle that is fuel efficient, fun, but also practical and family friendly, that's where the Escape is going to be a great option for you. One thing I do like about the Escape, regardless of the practicality, is the fact that it is versatile in many ways. It may not be as rugged as a Ford Bronco Sport, but because you do have the ability to go with the hybrid or plug-in hybrid powertrain, you have a lot of customizability with this model. So if you're trying to maximize fuel efficiency, go with one of those hybrid powertrains. But if you want to have some fun, go with the ST line. And with that fun, you also get the interior space where you can go on road trips with the family or just live an outdoor-oriented lifestyle. I was able to fit all my camera gear today, no problem. So that's 2 bags of camera gear, a gimbal box, and a tripod. And so I had plenty of room to go grocery shopping afterwards. If you are going on that weekend getaway with the family, you could probably fit 6, 7, 8 bags of luggage back here, no problem. Also on both sides of the rear cargo area, you will have some cubbies for some smaller items such as maybe a couple water bottles, car detail equipment, or maybe even a first aid kit. Then with the second row seats folded, you're looking at right around 61 cubic feet of room. Again, not being a class leader, but certainly not the worst in this market. So if you do plan on moving stuff around or you're just constantly on the go, you'll have the interior space necessary to have your family join you, but also if you're alone, you can maybe move some boxes around if you are going to a new apartment. Also back here, beneath the floor mat, you are going to receive a spare tire. So if you do encounter a flat on your road trips or travels, you can fix that and be back on the road. And then finally, once you're done, just press the button and the liftgate will close automatically. So we're now behind the wheel of the 2023 Ford Escape ST line. Let's take this crossover out for a quick test drive to see how it performs, how it handles, how it drives, how it compares to other crossovers in this segment, more specifically the Mazda CX-5 and Dodge Hornet, because those are the only two direct competitors that I can think of off the top of my head that are really designed for sportiness, agility, and also being very engaging vehicles to drive. Whereas a lot of compact crossovers such as the CR-V, Toyota RAV4, Forester, and also the Volkswagen Tiguan are really boxy, underwhelming, and underpowered, and mostly purchased for practicality and fuel efficiency. So the Escape can be a bit more adventurous. A lot of it is because Ford does have the Bronco Sport in a similar price bracket, so you have the option to go with a vehicle that's a bit more car-like when it comes to the on-road demeanor, or you can go with more of a rugged aesthetic with that Bronco Sport. And because Ford has that versatility in the lineup, the Escape really benefits from that compared to its rivals and closest competitors. And that becomes evident with the ST line. And I really would love to see Ford give us an ST version of the Escape with a sports tuned suspension and a really fun powertrain and transmission. But most likely, I think Ford is done with that, at least here in the United States, because over in Europe, you still get the Ford Focus ST, and I don't think Ford wants to go back in that direction. They've really gone all in on crossovers and SUVs. But what I really love about this particular trim is that it is sporty. It does feel car-like. And a lot of crossovers do feel cumbersome. They feel heavy. They don't feel very agile at all. And if you're looking for a vehicle that does give you the practicality and interior space to accommodate a family, but you also want a crossover that is fun to drive, that's where I think the Escape is a great option. Now, I am starting off in sport mode. I want to see what this Turbo 4 can offer, but also I want to see what the handling is like. Now, of course, because we don't have that stiffer suspension, there will be some body roll in the corners. However, because you do have 250 horsepower, 280 pound-feet of torque, and a traditional 8-speed automatic transmission, you're going to really enjoy your time behind the wheel. I'd still love to see paddle shifters on this model, though, just to rotate the gears yourself and to have that ability to really enjoy the driving experience to its fullest, much like we see from other competitors in this segment. But honestly, though, when it comes to its playfulness, its handling and cornering ability, it is pretty fun. And I think a lot of it is because the Escape is taking on a different role compared to other vehicles in this market. So a CR-V can be boxy, it can be squared off, it can be somewhat boring because you have the Civic and you have the Accord. Whereas the Escape is really trying to fill the void where you don't have the Focus or the Fusion anymore. So it's giving you this car-like driving experience, which I think is really great to see, because a lot of crossovers are actually dull and boring, and you hear a lot of that from consumers, where they always say the vehicles are the exact same and it really doesn't matter what you get. I actually disagree with that sentiment, because with the Escape you have a vehicle that's multi-dimensional rather than just being a practical daily driver. So let's see what this powertrain is capable of. Impressive, very impressive. With this powertrain, you're not going to be craving for more power, more horsepower. Because you have 280 pound-feet of torque, it's so nimble and quick, but also very responsive. Also, the 8-speed automatic transmission does provide quick gear shifts, which pairs very well with this engine. And I actually think that this is the pick in the Escape lineup. Now, if you are prioritizing fuel efficiency, go with the 3-cylinder, go with the 1.5, or maybe you go with the hybrid or plug-in hybrid models. And that's really where I think the Escape is versatile in many ways. A lot of brands right now are not giving you plug-in hybrid technology. Some of them are offering hybrids, but not a lot of vehicles are giving you that. So Ford is really offering an Escape for everybody, whether you're somebody looking for a sportier experience or you're just looking for a fuel-efficient and practical crossover for your weekday commutes. Despite my feelings towards the Escape as being a lifted hatchback, since it is closely related to the Focus that we don't receive, it does have a traditional crossover on-road demeanor. So your seating position, you do sit pretty high up in this vehicle. You have a nice commanding feel and presence over the roadways. Also, when it comes to overall vision, you have a nice panoramic view. A-pillars are somewhat thin, so I don't think you need to worry about having blind spots when you are approaching intersections, which I think is really great. Then taking a look at your side mirrors, they are a bit smaller, so you might have to do a couple takes when you are trying to change lanes. And looking out back, you have a nice, decently sized rear window, and I can see what's directly behind me, even with the headrests in the way. I should mention that if you are interested in buying the plug-in hybrid powertrain for 2023, I did do a review of one earlier this year, and I'll leave the link in the description below, so that way you can make a more educated choice on your next Escape. However, I think the ST Line Select is the pick for the 2023 model, mostly because you get the Turbo 4 standard. And I have no problem with the 1.5 liter 3-cylinder, but I am somebody looking for an engaging driving experience, and if you are too, this is definitely going to be the powertrain you're going to want to have. As I alluded to earlier on, the close competitors to the Ford Escape really are the Mazda CX-5 and Dodge Hornet. It's difficult for me to sit here and try cross-shopping the Escape head-to-head with a CR-V, with a Forester, mostly because the Escape is so multi-dimensional. But from a performance perspective, it's very comparable to that CX-5. And I do think that the Escape feels more spry, athletic, quicker to respond than the CX-5, and it could be because we have the 8-speed automatic compared to the 6-speed in the Mazda, and having those 2 extra gears might be playing around with my perception here when I am driving on some back roads. But also, the CX-5 has an edge of a luxury-like experience on the roadways. It's not necessarily a sporty vehicle. However, the Dodge Hornet is all performance all the time, even in its base form. And with the ZF 9-speed automatic, it's a very quick vehicle, and one that I think is maybe tuned more towards the enthusiast rather than just a regular consumer looking for a comfortable daily driver. Also, of course, the Hornet can be a bit more expensive than the Escape, especially depending on what trims you're going with, and the Escape does undercut that model, and also, of course, is more practical. However, what I really like about the Escape, regardless of what vehicle you try matching up one-on-one against this model, is the fact that Ford took a lot of European qualities and characteristics and carried it over to a vehicle that's being sold in the United States. And that was really the ethos behind the Escape nameplate from the very beginning. But you feel that more so now for 2023 than even the pre-facelift models. And that translates to the driving experience as well, because the handling is very competent, but also this vehicle is compliant in many ways. It's not going to be the most luxurious, it's not going to be the most comfortable, but it's also not going to be a vehicle that you're going to fall asleep behind the wheel, which is why I say go with the Turbo 4 over the 3-cylinder. You're going to have a lot more fun. But it does come at a cost because you will be sacrificing the fuel efficiency, and of course you're going to be paying a bit more for the Turbo 4, but I think it's totally worth it at the end of the day. Ultimately, from an on-road perspective, I love what the Ford Escape is offering consumers, more so than what we see from Japanese rivals such as the Subaru Forester, the Honda CR-V, and the Nissan Rogue. Because you have a powerful turbocharged 4-cylinder engine that is optional, you have a vehicle that is going to be very engaging and fun to drive. It's not going to be a crossover that you're going to be begging for more power on your daily commutes, but also it's a vehicle that, in my mind, under $40,000, I think is a great value just because of its performance alone. Sure, I think we can look at it from a refinement perspective and say, well, it doesn't have the soft touch materials, or maybe we don't have leather seats at $38,000. But for a vehicle for somebody who is looking for an inspirational crossover, one that they can actually enjoy Monday through Friday and on maybe some weekend getaways, that's where I think the Escape is a great pick. So to quickly wrap up my time with the 2023 Ford Escape, what are my final thoughts and takeaways for this compact crossover? Regardless of whether you go with this trim or not, I highly recommend opting for the 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, especially if you are somebody who wants an engaging and fun driving experience. Also, with the Escape being more hatchback-like or car-like, the handling and just driving characteristics is really going to be quite a different experience to what you're going to find in a CR-V or Toyota RAV4, and that is definitely not a bad thing at all. But with a more potent powertrain, it all just comes together very nicely. I do like the ST Select trim though, because you do get this nice steering wheel, the carbon fiber inlay on the dashboard and door panels, and also these seats do provide a good amount of support and bolstering. Because Ford does have the Bronco Sport, the Escape can be its own entity. It doesn't have to really wear too many hats, unlike its competitors. So it doesn't need to be rugged. All it needs to be is fun, comfortable, practical, and family friendly, and that's exactly what it is. If you are somebody who isn't an adventurer, you don't want to go off-road, you don't need the off-road capability, take a look at the Escape. Even though I think the Bronco Sport is a fantastic vehicle in its market, especially compared to its rugged and off-road worthy rivals, but if you are strictly looking at buying a compact crossover that does give you a nice blend and a multi-dimensional experience behind the wheel, then I would definitely recommend taking a look at the ST line. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more. Also, make sure to follow me on Instagram at Boston Autoblog so you can see what I'm up to and what vehicles I'll be featuring in the future. And I will see you guys next time.